You do not know how the Colosseum was built, but today I will tell you all the facts that will definitely shock you. We have been looking at it for almost 2,000 years, and we still cannot fully understand how it was done. The Colosseum in Rome is not just the ruins of an ancient arena, it is a challenge. A challenge thrown by Roman engineers of their time to nature and to our very notion of what is possible. Built in just 8 years, this giant weighing millions of tons still holds secrets that modern technologies are only beginning to unravel. It has survived earthquakes, fires, and centuries of oblivion, yet its fundamental structure remains unshakable. We build skyscrapers of steel and glass, but we cannot precisely replicate the main building material of the Romans. This is a story not just about stones and concrete. This is a story about political will, ingenious logistics, and an engineering breakthrough that was thousands of years ahead of its time. Watch to the end of the video, and you will learn why Roman concrete becomes stronger underwater, how thousands of sailors managed the giant roof of the Colosseum, and why, even with all our technologies, we could not build an exact copy of this wonder today. What if I told you that the Colosseum was built not so much for spectacle, but as the largest and most successful PR project in human history? To understand how it was built, one must first understand why. On the very site of the Colosseum, there stood Nero's Golden House, a gigantic, lavish palace complex built after the Great Fire of Rome. That palace was a symbol of tyranny and extravagance, arousing the hatred of the Roman people who had lost their homes. In the center of that complex, Nero ordered a huge artificial lake to be dug, a personal paradise amid the city. After Nero's fall in a year of civil war, the Emperor Vespasian came to power, founder of the Flavian dynasty. He urgently needed to distance himself from Nero's memory and win the loyalty of the people. Vespasian made a brilliant decision. He drained Nero's hated lake. On that very site where the tyrant's private water basin had been, he decided to build something for all Romans. It was a powerful symbolic gesture, returning to the people the land stolen from them. Thus, the Flavian amphitheater, which we know as the Colosseum, was born. Its construction was a political statement, a promise of a new era. Vespasian was in effect saying, "What one emperor took for himself, another returns to you in abundance." This amphitheater was to become the largest ever built, a gift that would eclipse all that came before. So from the start, the project incorporated incredible ambitions and resources. Financing this colossal project was also part of the political calculation. Construction was financed from the spoils taken after suppressing the Jewish revolt and plundering the Temple of Jerusalem. Thus, the Colosseum became also a monument to victory, a symbol of Rome's unshakable power over conquered peoples. Every arch and every stone was meant to demonstrate the wealth and might of the new dynasty. It was a monument paid for with military booty. The speed of construction became a separate propaganda tool. Vespasian began building around AD 72, and his son Titus inaugurated the amphitheater already in AD 80. Building such a structure in less than a decade was unheard of. It demonstrated not only engineering genius, but also the extraordinary organizational power of the Roman state, its ability to mobilize resources and labor. The architecture itself carried a political message. Unlike Greek theaters, which were built on hillsides, the Colosseum stood fully as a freestanding building. It needed no natural support. It was itself a new man-made mountain of stone and concrete. This was a demonstration of Roman dominance over nature and over the engineering traditions of the past. In every detail, one saw the idea of order and hierarchy. The system of entrances, stairways, and seating sectors was designed to clearly separate social classes. Senators sat at the bottom, then equestrians, then citizens, and at the very top were women and the poorest strata. The Colosseum was a microcosm of Roman society, where everyone had their place. This project also solved a practical task, crowd management. The famous principle, bread and circuses, underpinned Roman domestic policy. By giving the people thrilling spectacles, Emperors ensured social stability and diverted the populace's attention from political problems. The Colosseum was to become the main stage for that policy. Thus, every aspect of construction, from site selection to speed of work, was dictated not just by engineering necessity, but by a deep political calculation. The Colosseum was conceived as an eternal symbol of the power of the Flavians and of the emperor's generosity to his people. It was meant to erase the memory of Nero and to write the name of the new dynasty into history forever. How do you think modern stadiums or mega projects fulfill a similar political and PR function as the Colosseum did? I'd be very interested in your view. Please write it in the comments and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next investigations of the mysteries of the past. Are you ready to learn the truth about what hides beneath the famous arena? Before the walls could rise, the Romans had to solve the most difficult engineering challenge of the entire project: the foundation. The problem lay in the very location, the drained bottom of Nero's artificial lake. It was a marshy, unstable hollow made of clay and silt, utterly unsuited for the heaviest building in the world. First, Roman engineers had to carry out massive earthworks. They excavated a gigantic oval pit, removing millions of cubic meters of soft ground. By modern estimates, the pit reached a depth of more than 12 meters before workers hit a firm clay layer capable of carrying the future load. This was an operation comparable in scale to the construction itself. Next began the creation of the foundation, and this is exactly where the Romans applied their main secret weapon: concrete, or opus cementitium. They didn't simply pour a flat slab. Instead, they created a giant donut-shaped concrete ring about 12 to 13 meters thick and more than 50 meters wide. This massive elliptical foundation was meant to bear the weight of all the outer walls and seating tiers. In the center of that ring, where the arena would later stand, the engineers left the original firmer soil. However, under the arena itself, strong structural walls were also laid. They were to support the future underground chambers, the hypogum, and the wooden arena floor. This complex foundation system resembled the root system of a giant tree. One of the chief problems remained water. Despite the lake being drained, groundwater in the hollow did not vanish. To prevent the foundation from floating and to stop the vaults from flooding, the engineers devised an intricate drainage system. Around the entire foundation, deep stone-lined channels were laid to carry off excess water into the Great Cloaca Maxima. The scale of concrete work was colossal. The Romans mixed lime, water, and their famed volcanic ash, pozzolana, on site. As aggregate, cementa, they used large chunks of stone and broken brick. This not only saved on mortar, but created an incredibly strong monolith, which over time simply got stronger. That foundation was designed with a huge safety margin. The Roman engineers instinctively understood how loads distribute. They calculated that the main weight would come on the outer wall in the inner supporting rings, and so under those, the concrete layer was thickest. This allowed the building to bear not only its own weight, but also the constant vibration from tens of thousands of spectators. In addition to drainage, the foundation included technical tunnels from the start. These served not only for maintenance, but also as part of the sewage system draining the upper tiers. The engineers thought many steps ahead, integrating all necessary utilities into the building's base from the zero cycle stage. Work on the foundation took a significant portion of the total construction time. It was invisible, yet the most important stage. Any mistake made at this stage would have led to inevitable collapse of the whole structure. The Romans worked with the highest precision to create a platform which has lasted 2,000 years. Which engineering challenge in constructing massive edifices seems hardest today? Water control, building the foundation, or materials logistics? But that concrete was not just strong. It had almost magical properties which we could not decipher until recently. In the next chapter, we'll reveal the main secret of Roman concrete, which makes it stronger than modern analogs. I will disclose the most guarded secret of Roman builders, a technology which allowed their creations to survive millennia. What if I told you that the concrete of the Colosseum becomes only stronger with time, especially when exposed to water? This isn't magic, but brilliant chemistry which modern scientists have only recently fully understood. That material, opus cementitium, was a true technological revolution. The secret lay not so much in the cement, but in the aggregate. The Romans used not ordinary sand but pozzolana, volcanic ash, which they quarried in large quantity near Neapolis, in the region of Pozzuoli. That ash was rich in oxides of silicon and aluminium. When it was mixed with lime, which was the main binding agent, a unique chemical reaction began. Unlike modern Portland cement, which essentially acts as glue-binding sand and gravel particles, the Roman mixture created a new crystalline structure. The lime entered into a reaction with the volcanic ash, forming so-called calcium aluminosilicate crystals. Those crystals grew inside the mixture, tightly bonding with the aggregate, chunks of stone or brick, and forming a monolith as strong as natural stone. The most astonishing property of this material was its reaction to water. If modern concrete deteriorates over time under moisture that washes out salts, Roman concrete behaved differently. Water, penetrating microcracks, triggered a secondary reaction with unreacted pozzolana particles. New crystals grew right in the cracks, effectively self-healing the structure from within. This property made Roman concrete the ideal material for building ports, aqueducts, and of course, foundations on marshy ground like that of the Colosseum. The amphitheater's foundation, in constant contact with groundwater, did not deteriorate. On the contrary, it became even more durable and waterproof. This is one of the main reasons why the southern part of the Colosseum, which stands on weaker ground, has not collapsed completely. Roman engineers also cleverly varied the concrete composition depending on its purpose. For the massive foundation, they used heavy aggregate, chunks of travertine and basalt. But for the upper tiers and vaults, where weight needed to be reduced, they used lighter materials. In the concrete for the upper arches, they added broken ceramic and even light volcanic pumice. This technique of gradient construction allowed a significant reduction in load on the bearing walls and arches. The higher the Colosseum was built, the lighter its components became. This was a complex engineering task requiring precise control of the mix at each level. The Romans did not simply pour concrete, they built with it like a high-tech composite material. We still cannot replicate that exact recipe on an industrial scale. We know the ingredients, but the exact proportions, time of mixing, and methods of placement remain largely a mystery. Moreover, our modern construction industry is focused on speed and cost-effectiveness. And Portland cement sets far faster than Roman concrete. Roman concrete, however, required more time to reach full strength, but was built for eternity. The loss of this technology after the fall of the Roman Empire set construction back 1,000 years. Medieval builders knew not concrete and had to rely solely on stone, which made their structures heavier and less durable. The revival of concrete occurred only in the 19th century, but our new material has proven less long-lasting than its ancient predecessor. Today, scientists are actively studying Roman concrete structure, trying to create modern, sustainable, and self-healing mixes. Ironically, to build the buildings of the future, we look back at the technology of 2,000 years ago. The Colosseum is not just a monument, it is a working laboratory holding the key to more durable materials. If you are surprised that ancient technologies can outperform modern ones, don't forget to like this video and also subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new videos where I reveal historical secrets. Guess how much time it took to deliver and lift a single gigantic stone for the Colosseum? Although concrete formed the structure, its face and supporting skeleton were of travertine. This durable and beautiful beige limestone tuff gives the Colosseum its famous appearance. For the external walls and main support columns, the Romans used more than 100,000 cubic meters of this stone. Travertine was quarried in the quarries of Tibur, the modern town of Tivoli, about 30 kilometers from Rome. That meant the Romans had to solve a colossal logistics challenge. First, huge blocks, each weighing several tons, had to be cut out of the rock. They used metal wedges driven into the rock, and then possibly wet wood that expanded to split the stone. After extraction came the most difficult stage: transport. Estimates suggest that moving such volume of stone would require thousands of carts. Most likely, the Romans built a special paved road from the quarries to Rome. Blocks were loaded onto massive wooden sledges pulled by dozens of oxen. It was a slow and laborious process requiring flawless organization of traffic. Upon arrival in Rome, the stones had to be lifted to great height, reaching 48 meters. Here another Roman technology came into play: massive lifting cranes, or polyspastos. These wooden machines were powered not by manpower, but by a giant hamster wheel. Several workers walking inside the wheel, using a system of pulleys, block and tackle, could raise loads weighing several tons. But the most astonishing feature of the travertine framework is that it was assembled with almost no mortar. The blocks of the outer walls and arches were so precisely cut that a knife blade could barely pass between them. This was the peak of stonemasonry. Instead of mortar to bind the blocks, the Romans used something different. Holes were drilled in adjacent blocks, into which huge iron clamps were inserted. These clamps were then cast in molten lead to lock them firmly. Estimates suggest about 300 tons of iron were used just for those anchors across the building. It is those iron clamps that became one of the causes of the Colosseum's deterioration in the Middle Ages. Iron was expensive and in demand. During Rome's decline, local residents began literally mining metal from the amphitheater's walls. They chiseled out the stone to reach the clamps, which weakened the structure and led to the well-known holes on the facade. The engineers also showed wisdom in distributing materials. The entire external frame and main load-bearing supports were of expensive, durable travertine. Internal walls, which did not carry such loads, used cheaper local stone, volcanic tuff. For filling walls and partitions, they used brick and, of course, concrete. The precision of the stonemasons was phenomenal. Each of the 80 arches on the first tier had the same width and height. This standardization and modularity allowed construction to be significantly sped up. Different crews could work simultaneously on identical sections, knowing that eventually all parts would fit perfectly. That stone skeleton not only bore the weight of tens of thousands of spectators, but was also designed to withstand natural disasters. Although earthquakes seriously damaged the Colosseum, especially in 1349 when the entire southern wall collapsed, the fact that the northern portion still stands is the best testament to the structure's strength and flexibility. Can you imagine a modern building assembled from multi-ton blocks without mortar? But who moved all those stones and poured all that concrete? In the next chapter, we'll talk about the invisible army that built the Colosseum. The Colosseum was built in just 8 years, a time frame that seems unthinkable even today. This record was achieved thanks to Rome's principal resource, its ability for total mobilization and organization. The Flavian Amphitheater's construction was not just a building site, but a complex military logistics operation involving, by various estimates, 20,000 to 40,000 people simultaneously. The bulk of unskilled labor force was probably made up of war captives. Construction began immediately after the Jewish War, and tens of thousands of prisoners were brought to Rome as trophies. They performed the heaviest work, digging the pit, hauling earth, mixing concrete, and working the quarries in Tivoli. It was a massive and essentially free labor resource, which allowed the works to proceed so speedily. However, the Colosseum was by no means built by unskilled labor alone. The driving force of the project were engineers and legionaries. The Roman army was not only a fighting force, but the empire's principal engineering construction corps. Legionaries possessed skills in surveying, road building, bridge and aqueduct construction. They directed the work and formed the core of the skilled crews. The construction site was organized with military precision. Work proceeded under a strict schedule and likely in multiple shifts, possibly around the clock by torchlight. The whole site was divided into sectors. Different crews, or officinae, were responsible for their own sections, from the foundation to the upper tiers. This allowed parallel work on different levels. In addition to brute force and engineering oversight, an enormous number of specialized craftsmen took part. These were highly paid stonemasons who cut travertine blocks with jeweler-like precision. Carpenters erected complex wooden scaffolds and formwork for concrete vaults. Blacksmiths forged tons of iron clamps and tools on site. The logistics of this project is astonishing. Every day, thousands of tons of materials had to be delivered. Travertine from Tivoli, pozzolana from Pozzuoli, lime from the kilns, sand, bricks, timber for scaffolding and fuel. Simultaneously, the workforce had to be fed and housed. The whole city of Rome was involved in providing for this giant building site. We do not know the names of the chief architects of the Colosseum. Unlike in Greece and Rome, engineers and architects often remained in the shadow of the emperor, who was considered the principal author of the project. Yet those anonymous geniuses must have had extraordinary knowledge of mathematics, geometry, and structural engineering. They performed the most complex calculations of load and stress, with no computers but only the abacus and their experience. The Romans were also masters of standardization. Many elements, such as steps, arches, and even decorative features, were mass-produced to a single pattern. This allowed for rapid replacement of damaged elements and sped-up assembly. The Colosseum was, in effect, one of the earliest examples of large-block modular construction. Working conditions were undoubtedly incredibly hard and hazardous. Work at heights of tens of meters, lifting multi-ton blocks, dust from cutting stone, and lime dust from concrete. All this made the site a very dangerous place. Yet Roman discipline and organization kept the pace despite the difficulties. It was this combination of unlimited human resources, military organization, brilliant engineers, and advanced materials, concrete, that made the impossible possible. The Colosseum is a monument not only to Emperor Vespasian, but to that ruthless and incredibly efficient Roman machine, which mobilized everything for the achievement of its goal in record time. Are you ready for the shocking truth about how 50,000 people could enter the Colosseum and be seated in just 15 minutes? The secret lay in the ingenious construction based on the principal invention of Roman architecture: the arch. The whole Colosseum essentially is a three-dimensional grid of arches, vaults, and supports, creating an incredibly strong yet lacy frame. The outer wall consists of 3 tiers of arcades with 80 arches on each. An arch is a brilliant engineering solution that allows large spans by directing weight not directly downward, but sideways into supports. By using arches instead of solid walls, the Romans not only saved massive quantities of material, but also achieved that a 48-meter-high wall would not collapse under its own weight. But the real genius lies inside. The whole system of corridors, stairs, and seating is supported by a complex system of concrete vaults. The Romans used 2 main types: barrel vaults, like half pipes for corridors, and cross vaults, intersection of 2 barrel vaults for covering square spaces. These vaults, cast in lightweight concrete, formed strong and fire-resistant ceilings on which marble steps were placed. It was this system of vaulted corridors that was key to managing the crowd. The 80 arches on the first floor were not just decoration, but entrances. 76 of them were for the public. Each sector and tier had its own entrance, stairs, and corridors. Spectators had tickets, probably clay tokens, indicating the entrance number, sector, and row. This system was called vomitoria. This Latin word comes from the verb vomere, to spew forth. It was so named because the wide passages enabled the building to instantly spew forth the crowd after the spectacles ended. People did not mix. The flows were separated. Spectators from the upper tiers did not cross with those from the lower. All the internal logistics were considered down to the smallest detail. 2 main entrances on the short axis were for the emperor and his entourage, and also for event organizers. They led straight to the imperial box, pulvinar. 2 other entrances on the long axis were used for solemn processions of participants. This modular and cell-like structure also provided incredible durability to the building. Each of the 80 vertical sectors, formed by radial walls, was in effect an independent load-bearing unit. Even if one section collapsed, the rest of the building would most likely have stood. This is what we today call redundancy in structural design. Arches and vaults also solved the problem of lighting and ventilation. The open arcades on the 3 tiers allowed light and air inside, making the stay in a giant stone shell more comfortable. The internal corridors were dark, but there were so many of them that bottlenecks were excluded. Roman engineers used different materials for different arches. The outer arches were of travertine. The internal load-bearing arches were built of cheaper tuff and brick. And the vaults, as mentioned above, were cast in lightweight concrete. It was a complex composite construction where each material was used in its most effective place. Today's stadiums use the same principles of flow separation and rapid ingress or egress, which were laid down at the Colosseum 2,000 years ago. However, the Romans achieved this using only stone, concrete, and brilliant calculation, without steel beams and computer modeling. Isn't that brilliantly simple and efficient? But how did they seat all these people inside, and how did the social structure of Rome reflect in stone? In the next chapter, we'll climb onto the spectator tiers. The internal arrangement of the Colosseum, known as the cavea or seating tiers, was not just a place to sit. It was an exact and merciless reflection of the entire social hierarchy of the Roman Empire, carved in stone and marble. Where you sat directly determined your status in society, and no exceptions were allowed. All of Rome in miniature gathered here, and everyone knew their place. The stands were divided into 5 main tiers. The lowest and most prestigious sector, located directly above the arena, was called the podium. Here on broad marble terraces sat the chairs of senators, high magistrates, and priests. In the center of the short axis of the podium was the imperial box, or pulvinar, from which the emperor watched the spectacle. Immediately behind the podium began the first tier for the public, the Ima Cavea. It was reserved for the equestrians, Rome's second-rank aristocracy, major businessmen and military officers. These seats were also marble and offered an excellent view. To reach this tier without being an equestrian was impossible. Above was the media cavea, the middle tier. It was intended for ordinary Roman citizens or plebeians. These seats were no longer as comfortable, likely faced with cheaper stone rather than marble. This sector was the largest because the citizens formed the backbone of Roman population. Even higher was the summa cavea, the upper tier. Here sat the poorest layers of society, the proletarii, as well as freedmen and foreigners. The benches here were likely simple stone. The view was the worst, the arena looked tiny, but the entrance was free to all citizens. Finally, under the roof, on a wooden gallery which has not survived to this day, were the worst seats. This sector, according to some sources, was reserved exclusively for women from the lower classes. Thus, social and gender segregation in the Colosseum was absolute. This strict hierarchy was not simply tradition, but law. Special edicts from Emperors Augustus and Domitian strictly regulated who had the right to sit where. Violation of this order was severely punished. The Colosseum was a daily lecture in political strategy, visibly showing each Roman their exact place in the state structure. In addition to vertical separation, there was also horizontal. Each tier was divided by wedges, hunae, into sectors, like slicing a cake. These sectors were separated from each other by barriers and passages. Tickets, or tesserae, indicated not only the tier, but the specific sector and row. The materials also emphasized the hierarchy. The podium and Ima Cavea were clad in expensive colored marble. Higher up, simpler white marble or travertine was used. The uppermost tiers likely had no cladding at all. Even the decoration emphasized the status of spectators. This giant bowl of stone and marble held by various estimates between 50,000 and 80,000 people. That is more than many modern stadiums. Surprisingly, that whole multi-tiered structure rested on concrete vaults and radial walls, as discussed in the previous chapter. Today we are used to ticket price determining the seat, but in Rome your place was determined by birth and status. The Colosseum was not just an entertainment center, but a powerful tool of social control, reminding Romans daily of the inviolability of their world. What the spectators saw in the arena was only half the spectacle. The real technological marvel was hidden beneath their feet. Under the wooden arena floor, covered with sand, lay the hypogeum, a 2-level labyrinth of tunnels, chambers, shafts, and mechanisms, added soon after the Colosseum's opening by Emperor Domitian. This underground complex was essentially the backstage or technical zone of the amphitheater. Here were stored the sets for the performances. Here awaited the participants and exotic animals brought from all corners of the empire. The hypogeum was the heart that made the arena come alive, and spectators had no idea of its existence. The main technological feature of the hypogeum was the most complex system of lifts and hoists. Spread throughout the underground area were dozens, if not hundreds, of wooden lifting platforms. These platforms could raise scenery to the arena level, creating on the empty sandpit a forest or a hill, and also bring participants up to the level. They were operated manually with a system of ropes, pulleys, and counterweights. Huge winches, turned by working teams, were placed in the technical corridors. This required incredible synchronization and teamwork. Dozens of mechanisms had to work simultaneously to produce the desired effect for the spectators. The arena floor was perforated with trapdoors and hatches. These hatches were camouflaged and opened at just the right moment, allowing scenery and participants to appear out of nowhere. This element of surprise was a key part of the spectacle and demonstrated the Emperor's almost magical control over the event. The underground area also had its own logistics. Two large central corridors ran along the main axis of the hypogeum. They connected to external tunnels leading beyond the Colosseum, including to the barracks of participants and to the Imperial Palace. This allowed staff and equipment to be entered and removed unseen. The hypogeum was dark, cramped, and stifling. It was lit only by oil lamps. The noise of winches, the shouts of people, and the roars of animals mixed with smells, creating a tense atmosphere. Hundreds of workers and technicians darted through narrow passages, following orders from directors coordinating the action above and below. The system also included a complex drainage network. Although the hypogeum was built after the idea of flooding the arena for naval battles was abandoned, water still seeped inside. Special channels under the floor of the lower tier collected all water and drained it into the main sewer system. Interestingly, this underground world was excavated after the Colosseum was already open. The engineers of Domitian had to remove millions of cubic meters of soil and concrete from under an existing building and reinforce the foundation to build this two-level complex. This was no less complex an engineering feat than building the amphitheater itself. Today, when we look at the Hypogeum ruins, we see only bare walls. But one must imagine that place in action. The winch creaking, torchlight, hundreds of people moving, all so that above, on the sunlit arena, a spectacle could unfold. This was a high-tech mechanism for creating illusions, a pinnacle of Roman entertainment engineering. Imagine 50,000 people sitting under the blazing Roman sun in a stone bowl. Being there for hours would be unbearable. Roman engineers planned for that too, creating one of their most impressive and least understood inventions, the velarium. This was a giant fabric canopy stretched over the spectator seats. This structure was a true wonder of engineering. The velarium was a massive linen or canvas awning that covered about 2/3 of the amphitheater. The central part above the arena remained open to let in light, but all the spectator tiers were in shade. This created comfortable conditions for multi-hour spectacles. The attachment system of this canopy was incredibly complex. Along the top edge of the Colosseum, on the attic, some 240 tall wooden masts were installed. They were inserted into special stone brackets, still visible on the wall today. These masts served as supports for a complex rope network. Ropes from these masts converged to a central elliptical ring, suspended directly above the arena. On this rope web, the fabric panels were laid out like petals radiating from the center to the edges. The whole structure worked like a giant umbrella. But how was this behemoth managed? For deploying and retracting the velarium, hundreds of people were required. This task was assigned not to builders, but to sailors. A special detachment of the Roman fleet, the Classis Messinensis, based at Missanum, was permanently stationed in Rome specifically to manage the velarium. These experienced seamen had all the necessary skills for working with sails and ropes. Managing the velarium was a complex assignment. Sailors had to take into account the strength and direction of the wind, which could easily tear the giant canopy or even damage the supporting masts. They likely deployed the canopy in sectors rather than completely, depending on the sun's position. It was precise and dangerous work at height of almost 50 meters. For anchoring the ropes, not only masts on top were used, but also stone blocks embedded in the ground around the Colosseum. These blocks, still visible today, served as anchors. Ropes from the mast ran down to these anchor blocks, forming a system of stays which stabilized the whole structure. The material used for the velarium was also valuable. It was thousands of square meters of costly linen, possibly imported from Egypt. The fabric was likely dyed in different colors, creating a beautiful pattern for those watching below. This was not just protection from the sun, but another demonstration of power and wealth. No other building in the world had such a complex and expensive roof. The emperor was giving the people not only spectacle, but comfort, protecting them from the heat. This was a key element of imperial propaganda. Unfortunately, no depiction of the velarium has survived, and we can reconstruct it only by indirect evidence: the wall brackets, anchor blocks, and rare textual mentions. This is one of the great mysteries of the Colosseum. But the fact that the Romans were able to design, build, and successfully operate such a giant retractable canopy using only wood, ropes, and fabric is awe-inspiring. The title of this video contains a provocative question: why can't we replicate the Colosseum? At first glance, this sounds absurd. Modern engineers build skyscrapers a kilometer high, giant bridges and underwater tunnels. Of course, technically, we could build an exact copy of the Colosseum using steel, reinforced concrete, and huge cranes. But the truth is, we cannot build it the way the Romans did. The first and main reason is labor ethics and cost. The Colosseum was built in a record time thanks to access to an enormous amount of unpaid or extremely cheap labor, mostly prisoners of war. In today's world, with its labor legislation, 40-hour work week, and safety standards, a similar project would take far more time and cost astronomical money. The second reason is materials. We spoke of 100,000 cubic meters of travertine. Today, extracting that quantity of solid stone from a single quarry would be an environmental and logistical disaster. Further, the very technology of Roman concrete using pozzolana is not our industrial standard. Our civilization is built on Portland cement, which is faster but less durable. The third reason is the purpose and philosophy of construction. The Colosseum was built as an eternal monument of power. Roman engineers built into it a colossal margin of safety, using multi-ton stone blocks where lighter structures could suffice. Modern stadiums are commercial objects. They are built as light and cheap as possible, using steel frameworks, and designed for a service life of 50 to 100 years, not millennia. The fourth reason is lost skills. Although we have computer modeling, we have in many ways lost that intuitive feel for stone, which Roman stonemasons possessed. The ability to process and fit multi-ton blocks without mortar with millimeter precision is a rare craft and prohibitively expensive today. To reproduce that quality of masonry on a mass scale would be almost impossible. The fifth reason is the economic model. The Colosseum was funded not from a budget, but directly from military spoils. It was a one-time injection of colossal funds, unburdened by taxes, inflation, and market prices. In modern economics, a project of that cost, estimated in today's money as tens of billions of dollars, simply would not pass any budget approval without a clear commercial return. Thus, the Colosseum is a unique product of its era. It stands at the intersection of absolute political will of one man, unlimited labor resources captured in war, and a unique engineering breakthrough in the form of hydraulic concrete. We no longer have such a combination of factors. We may build taller, larger, and lighter. We can create a stadium with a retractable roof, climate control, and huge screens. But we cannot build the same way. We cannot afford the luxury of building from solid stone and concrete that hardens over centuries, using tens of thousands of hands. The Colosseum remains a symbol not only of engineering genius, but of a wholly different civilizational model. A model in which time and human life had a different value. And the purpose of building was not profit, but eternity. In that sense, we really cannot replicate it. This amphitheater was not just a building. It was a mechanism, a reflection of society, and a political manifesto cast in concrete and stone. It outlasted the empire which created it, and still poses questions about our own technologies and values. We have made the journey from the swampy bed of Nero's lake to the dizzying height of the Valerium. We have seen that the Colosseum is not simply an arena, but a brilliant machine, each detail of which was thought out with incredible precision. From the self-healing concrete in the foundation to the intricate hydraulics of the underground chambers. All this was created by the minds and hands of people who lived 2,000 years ago. The story of the Colosseum is the story of how ambition, engineering genius, and limitless resources multiplied by military organization can create a wonder of the world. It still stands as a silent reproach to our own era of disposable technologies, reminding us what it means to build for centuries. What other mysteries of ancient civilizations would you like us to unravel? Perhaps you are interested in how the Pantheon was really built with its giant dome, or what engineering secrets are hidden in the aqueducts. Suggest topics for future videos in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next investigations.